My name is David Marsden. I'm a residential broker in Portland and have been one for the last 13 years. New office in town called the Bean Group. I've seen some good years and some lean years and learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. So I'm here to talk about 2015. Let me see if we can break right into it. Aha! So what I'm going to talk about today, we're going to take a brief look back for the last 5 years, just to give you a brief perspective. We're going to dig into 2015 and review what happened. Then I'm going to step back and we're going to look at some market trends of the last, what I think are going to affect the market in 2016 and beyond. And in closing, I'll give you my predictions for 2016 and beyond. You guys good? Smoke break's over? All right, let's go. So when I start researching residential homes, and just to qualify, Britt works primarily in the multifamily, 2 to 4 units, but then on up into the commercial world. Many of you are in the commercial world. I sell single-family homes, condos, and 2 to 4 units. That's my daily activity. This year I sold about 70 units, close to 40 million in transactions. So I have a good feel of what's happening in the market, and just get out there and do it. So that's my style. So we're going to look at median sales price, number of days on market, the volume of transactions, and some of the other factors that affected our market. So I'm used to looking behind me here, so I'm going to look in front. Brief explanation of my slides for the next few. On your left, annual graph for the last 5 years. On your right, a month-by-month comparison of what happened in 2015. So stepping back at the state of Maine, in the last 5 years, we've seen about a 10% increase in the median price. Although in 2015, there was a 13% swing from January to December. So pretty interesting. How about Cumberland County? What's going on? Similar, the last 5 years, we've had about a 10.7% increase in the median price. I hear hot market, 10.7% increase median price. Although during 2015, we saw a 15% swing between January and December in the median price, and it peaked in mid-June at about 250, and we'll dig into that in just a moment. How about the volume? Again, state of Maine, number of transactions. Between 2014, 2015, we saw about a 10% increase in volume. So look at the steady trend. Activity is increasing year over year. But in 2015, like in all residential, we see a bit of seasonality in the market. Look at the trends statewide. And then, remember last winter, you guys, Southern Maine? So now I'm looking at the volume of sales in 2015 for Cumberland County. Look at the volatility in the early spring 2015, that graph on the right. On an annual basis, about a 12% increase in volume of activity between 2014 and 15 in Cumberland County. Pretty interesting. Days on market. I look at this as a gauge to say, where's the demand? What's happening? State of Maine, pretty interesting. We saw a 28% reduction in the last 5 years of days on market. Went from, I can't even read my slides from here without my glasses, but this year, 71 days on market compared to 99 in 2011. Big swing. Again, talking about the seasonality, you see January through April, pretty long days on market. And then look at July, 41 days on market in the state of Maine. Cumberland County, very similar, even more radical change. There's a 56% reduction in days on market in the last 5 years, and a huge swing, about a 72% swing from January to year end, with peaking at 19 days on market in July. So what the heck does all this mean? I'll get to that in just a moment. For those of you that are living in Greater Portland, I thought this slide might be interesting. Do you see a town where you live? check out the median price in a town near you. One thing I found very fascinating was Scarborough, Cape Elizabeth, Cumberland, and Yarmouth all hovering in that 350 to 375. Again, these are residential single-family homes. Portland, obviously, about 250. Just to clarify, again, residential, there's all kinds of micro markets. Britt talked about Portland. There's a micro market on the East End or Peninsula, and then you have the East End. You have another small market out in Deering Center. East Bayside is an emerging market. Scarborough, Willard, Higgins Beach, it's a market unto itself. Falmouth, I think Falmouth Flats, the Foreside, West Falmouth, totally different markets. So you need a good broker that can tune into the regionality and the local aspects of each market. So don't, when you're looking at this data, take that into consideration. So what other factors in 2015 played a role? Weather, inventory, TRID, and interest rates. So you guys remember the mountains, not much snow. The coast, we got hammered last spring. Look at the graph, and this indicates the blue line is 2015, so very slow and gradual start. The other two lines are the preceding years, 2013, 2014. Look at what happened in April. Boom! Graph goes right up. Inventory's low, so we're coming out of winter with pent-up demand. Inventory's low, buyers are chasing it, resulting in multiple offers and short-term price increase. Remember those median prices peaking in midsummer? This is a result. So quick story, I work with both buyers and sellers. So friends are relocating from Colorado. They want to be in the Deering Center. They want their kids to walk to school. So I'm like, great, I live near there. I know the market. Let's go. April 29th, property hits the market. It's a Thursday. On Friday, we see the house. Saturday, we make an offer over asking price. This is a cash buyer. We bid $5,000 over the asking price. The house is priced around $400,000. Yeah, needs a little love. I'm thinking, yeah, they're high. And I'm pressing them to respond before the open house on Sunday. They say, whoa, David, we're going to wait and see what happens at the open house, and we'll respond to you after. Rats. Okay, so game on. By the end of the open house, they have 7 offers on the table. I think my folks are still in a good place. No, we were completely beat out. As a cash buyer, closed in less than 30 days. The offer, the winning offer was significantly over asking price of the $400,000. Switching, I'm putting on my seller's hat now. This is mid-July. I'm looking at the data, and for the first time in my career, I'm saying to my sellers, you know, your property is priced about here, but let's test the upper market. Similar to what Britt was saying, we're going to find it. We're going to chase it. So they take my advice, and 9 out of 10 times I've been right this year. Similar scenario, we list on a Thursday, we're gearing up for an open house on Sunday. On Saturday, a broker comes in with her iPhone and just walks around the property and FaceTimes her client. They're not even here, they're in Europe. I have an offer that afternoon above asking price. They're pressing me to respond. I slow down the pace because I want more offers. Sure enough, Sunday afternoon, we're in multiple offer situation. My sellers are psyched. House closes for significantly higher than the asking price. So supply, demand, weather, all contributed in the short term to price increase in 2015. Other factors, TRID. Those of you in the banking world, you know more about this than I. This is about greater consumer transparency coming out of the Banking Reform Dodd-Frank Act. This, so the whole settlement and closing procedure for residential has radically changed. The language has changed, the process has changed. Remember the HUD-1 settlement statement? Gone, does not exist. So the goal was greater transparency, the result, a few hiccups along the way. Now, for 3 business days prior to every residential closing, the closing statement goes out, buyer must review. If there's a material change, that closing statement needs to be reissued, and another 3 business day waiting period has to happen. So what do you think's going on? Longer close rate, or longer closing times. We can't close in 30 days. It's now a 45 to 60 day closing period. So very fascinating. So we no longer have a closing with a buyer and seller. We have a consummation. Rates. We heard our economist from TD Bank speak about rates. I won't go into it, but it's certainly tied to the geopolitical and the economic events of the country and the world. National Association of Realtors predicting an increase of rates by year end of 2016 to about 4.8%. Trends. So we spoke about the data. I'm going to talk about 4 generational groups and then 1 trend that I see dramatically impacting the residential market. Boomers, Gen X's, millennials, and the tiny home movement. Boomers. We're seeing them in downtown Portland, aren't we? Here's a great statistic. Every day between now and 2029, 10,000 boomers are expected to retire. Quick math, 3.6 million a year. Heck of a lot of people, right? So what do they want? They're moving towards the urban. It's the revitalization of the downtown district. We're seeing it obviously in Portland. It was nice to hear we're seeing it in Bangor as well. But it's happening. This is a national trend. It's not just Portland. These boomers are different than my parents and my grandparents. They're more active. They're more mobile. They're more engaged with the community. And although they want to downsize, they don't want to go too small. They still need room for the kids to come visit, the grandkids to come visit, and also, just friends. So downsizing is a relative term here. We'll get into that in a moment. So baby boomers will have a significant impact from now until, I think, the next 15 years. Gen Xers. I think of them as the tweeners. They're wedged between this massive baby boomer population and the millennials, but they're half the size. So what do you think is going to happen when the baby boomers sell their inventory and make a lateral change? Who's going to fill that gap in inventory? Just not possible. The Gen Xers can't fill it. So those of you that live in a large house, 4 or 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, 3-car garage, I don't know what's going to happen in the market in the future. Going backwards. Millennials. My daughter's 22. She fits a lot of this criteria. She's fresh out of college, loaded down with student debt, even though I covered most of it. They're slower to enter their careers. They're getting married later, so thus there'll be a delayed affluence in the millennial market. In fact, some of the people that I've been talking to are predicting not until the next 10 or 15 years do these millennials really come into their own as far as affluence. So the graph to your right, this is a census statistic. I was digging around and it's fascinating. In 1980, there was a 5% chance that an adult child aged 30 would still be living with their parents. In 2013, there's close to a 25% chance. Do any of you have adult kids moving back home? Tiny homes. This is an interesting movement. It's happening nationwide. I don't know if we're seeing quite the effect here in Maine, but certainly the Gen Xers and the millennials are pushing this movement. They don't want the houses that the boomers have. They don't want big house. They don't want to clean it. They don't want to maintain it, everything. So I think quite an interesting shift in mindset. I believe they're also environmentally and fiscally more responsible than perhaps the boomers were at that young age. And they're all about mobility. They want to be on the move. So 3 segments or generations that will have an impact on our market moving forward, and also a movement of the tiny home. So, in closing, I have a distinct advantage over some of the other folks here today, although love the 8-ball. I came in during lunch and stashed. I have a very unique thing here. My crystal ball is real. It was a Christmas gift a few years ago. Can you guys see it? Kind of cloudy, but I believe this is real. So I consulted my crystal ball and I looked and said, hey, what's going to happen in 2016 and beyond? So crystal ball said, you know, slow and steady rise in the median sales price. No shock of what we've heard here today. I see interest rates probably rising to 4.5 to 5%, but under 5% by year end. Again, in the last few weeks with the stock market in China, they've actually dropped again. They're hovering in 3 3/4. So I don't think rates are going to play a significant role in 2016. I think demand for smaller, more energy efficient homes will continue. Again, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. So this next one, I'm going to go out on a limb. I predict that the luxury home market is going to slowly decline. Now, don't get me wrong. Those of you that live in some beautiful homes, there will always be a luxury home market. But think about it. Between, say, 700,000 and 1.5 million, that market is going to narrow. Maybe not in 2016, but it's going to start, and it's going to slowly condense. The millennials, the Gen Xers, they don't have the physical capacity or the financial capacity to buy those homes, and they're not interested in big homes. So I think there will be an effect on the luxury market. How much? Don't know yet. Based on some of the characteristics of the millennials moving back in, adult kids, and also the aging population, we taking care of our parents. I see a big opportunity in multi-generational housing. Britt spoke of that in the multi-family. That's real, and I think the new construction will address some of that. And lastly, I see increased demand as folks move closer to the urban area and a demand for that urban infill lot. We're seeing it in downtown Portland. Planning board responded by amending the R6 zone. We can now build with virtually minimal setbacks, reducing the parking restrictions for the first 3 units. So I think this is a good thing. Also in construction, just a demand for more sustainable and durable materials and long-term quality of life, buying local, and more sustainable living. With that, those are my predictions for 2016. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all.